Welcome to Moving Conversations, a podcast for movement professionals by movement professionals. If you coach, train, or teach movement, Pilates, or fitness, then this podcast is for you. With more than 60 years of experience in fitness and Pilates, your hosts, Brian Ritchie and Nora St. John, explore the science of human movement, diving deep into the facts, myths, and common misconceptions, hoping to spark thought and conversation about how we view fitness and movement. Now, let's jump into Moving Conversations. And welcome back to Moving Conversation. Brian Ritchie joining me as always is Nora St. John. Good morning, Nora. How you doing?
Very well, Brian. How about yourself?
Doing all right. Hanging in there. Sorry about last week. Had a little emergency occur, and so I couldn't make it. I hope I hadn't been replaced. I showed up today going, is someone going to be sitting in my seat? So I'm glad I'm still here. I appreciate that. So yeah, these things happen occasionally, but I got to say, I don't know if you realize this. Today is the 3rd anniversary of our first show.
Oh my gosh. Happy anniversary. I think it's getting close to it by the number, but we must be close to the end of the 3rd year, right?
Today is the finals one of our 3rd season.
Really?
Yeah, exactly.
We're a big 3.
Exactly. I was like, oh my gosh, we're at episode 52. So I said,
yeah.
Yep. So the fact that neither of us have missed until the end of the 3rd year, I think that's pretty good track rating for the two of us doing all of the travel and teaching and everything that we do all over the world. So not too bad.
You know, I have to say, this is one of the things that when we first started talking about this, I just committed to it. And it's just been, honestly, I've totally enjoyed it. It's been a blast to talk to you every week or have our guests every week. And just, I've learned a whole bunch. I've just had some really good insights. It feels like it's really deepened my understanding of how the body works and how all this wonderful profession that we're in goes. So anyway, I just really appreciate it. That's great. 3 years.
No, I've loved it. I've learned a lot. You and I have always had a great relationship in that we do bounce ideas off each other. When we do talk, it's like, I've been thinking about this, and then we go back and forth. And have you thought about this? Have you? And we've always done that. Yeah. And this just gives us sort of an outlet to pick a topic instead of just whatever happens to be on our mind or something that we read in the news or whatever. So it's like a very focused, conversation. And hopefully for our listeners, you've enjoyed what we've been doing. Hopefully we've gotten better. I sort of cringe at some of the early episodes because we are figuring our way. We are trying to figure all this out. And I think it's gotten a little bit better as we go. Hopefully other people agree with that, but I think we've gotten a lot more comfortable. I love our guests. I think that they've been fantastic. Always bringing up ideas and concepts and things that we wouldn't have thought of on our own. So I love that.
Yeah, that's just so nice to have the different perspectives in one's head, because we've been doing it long enough to have some, pretty deep grooves in terms of how we think about things. And it's really nice to have somebody come in and say, hey, well, check out this groove over here. Just looking at a different perspective is often all you need to get a fresh eye on a client or a problem or something you just haven't thought of before. So it's always been super fun. We got more guests coming up too. We got some more coming up in year number 4.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to it. It's funny that you said, we just need to commit to this. At the very beginning, you said, if we're going to do this, we need to commit. And it's true. I have talked to more people who have had podcasts, who have quit after 5 episodes, 10 episodes. And, we didn't get traction. I'm thinking, did you think that you were going to be the next big thing after 4 or 5 episodes? I mean, I'm sure there are some people, especially when podcasting was in its infancy, that may have, developed that sort of thing. But you talk to most of them and it's a slow burn. And, you gather a few more people each and every week and you hope that it drives more people to you. And since we're in a very small niche, talking about not only healthcare, but also Pilates, personal training, movement in general, it's a smaller niche. So I don't expect us to have 5 million listeners a week. So I'm just happy for every one of you who is listening. So we appreciate it very much. And if you haven't hit that like and subscribe button, please do. We really appreciate it. And comment anything that you would love us to talk about. Do us a favor, hit us up on email, movingconvos@gmail.com. We get a number of, ideas coming in through there. So it's really interesting sort of to hear what you're interested in, because right now, a lot of times it's what Nora and I are interested in.
That's
And
right.
it's sort of, yeah. So we'd love to hear what you guys want to talk about, or say, I heard you talk to such and such about this topic. We'd love you to go into more detail. Or is there anything new or whatever? And we can do a deeper dive. So please let us know. We really appreciate it. Today's topic is part 3.
Part 3.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about,
right?
GLP1s.
GLP1s. We just wanted to talk about it again because there's more people on it. There's more research that's been done. They're starting to see impacts. And also, I think you and I certainly in our practices and in talking to a lot of different instructors are starting to understand what we're dealing with in the fitness studio or the Pilates studio. Like, what does this mean in terms of what our clients are doing or not doing? What are we looking for? All those things.
Yeah. It's very interesting because I remember the very first client who came in that said he was on it. Now, I used to work at the National Center for Weight and Wellness. I still consult for them, but I worked down there just part-time. I did their exercise consulting. And I was talking to the owner, and he had mentioned things that were way before the GLP-1 sort of came out, the first iteration of these. And they were not covered. They were only for diabetes. They were not covered by hardly any insurances, extremely expensive. If they were covered, I mean, you'd have to jump through hoops upon hoops upon hoops. And he was talking to me. He said, look, they're $1,500 to $2,000, a week. Said, but they do work. And he said, a good side effect is that people do lose weight. It's just they're really strict about who can take them because off-brand, prescribing is not the greatest thing in the world. And a lot of people do it. But so they were really trying to, minimize that. And then all of a sudden, I remember that first client who came in and said, oh, my doctor has me on this brand new drug. It's called Ozempic. I was like, okay, commercials hadn't come out yet. And I was like, sounds a little familiar. And I remember reading about it through Medscape or somewhere and thought, okay, I think I know what this is all about. And he said, it's the most amazing miracle thing I've ever experienced. I've lost 10 pounds. I've been on it only about a month and a half. I've been losing steady. Said, I walk by food. I'm not interested. Said, I've never been able to do that before. He said, it's a miracle. And he was not obese. He was just a heavyset guy, as a lot of people get heavier as they age. And so that was the very first time. And I remember hearing about that thinking, I didn't remember your A1Cs being all that high that you would be prescribed this. Now, he's got a little bit of money, so he just decided to do it on his own. And it worked for him. And that's within, I want to say days, but I'm sure it was weeks. Suddenly commercials are on TV. Everyone's talking about it. You hear all these influencers getting it on the black market and all sorts of stuff. So yeah, it's really come a long way in the last 3 years.
It has. And one of the things I've been reading up a lot on it in preparation for this podcast this week. And there's a couple things. One is the key thing it seems to talk about, and this seems to have as much of a brain component as anything else, is the lack of what a lot of people call like food mind, or just a brain that is constantly obsessed with what have I eaten? What am I going to eat? That looks good. Like always scanning the environment for what's the next meal. It says a lot of people say it just quiets that down. And so a lot of people say like food noise or food chatter is really has been their best, their most positive experience of it on the one hand. Right? Keeps that count down.
100%. But as a side effect of that, I don't know if you've heard of this, but it's called Ozempic personality, which is anhedonia. I believe that's how you pronounce it, which is just a loss of interest in everything. So not only food, but just a flatness, a loss of interest in things that they were passionate about.
Yeah, I was just reading about that and also hearing about the challenge of people who are on antidepressants and then go on it.
Oh, yeah.
Antidepressants in general, for most people, tend to kind of get rid of the highs and the lows for people, right? Again, they make them a little more in the midline in terms of emotional range. And then, not just anecdotally, but some studies have said that if you do that plus GLP-1s, that gets worse. That it's almost like that emotional range, which was 5 to 2, now goes down to 4 to 3 or something like that. So that was interesting too. That's certainly it. And then I think it's also, many other side effects too. Some people just can't tolerate it. It just makes them nauseous, feel terrible. Some people end up malnourished because they just can't eat enough. I mean, there are certainly some negative side effects to this for sure.
I think a lot of that probably goes back to when it was first being touted, and a lot of people were going into their doctors and sort of demanding it. And then when it did come out for weight loss, they didn't have to qualify. They just had to be over a certain BMI. And depending on if they had money or if they had good insurance or whatnot, maybe it would be covered, maybe it wouldn't. But I don't think the doctors knew what they were doing at the time, because it's such a new drug that it's hard to keep up with it. And it was hard to keep up with the studies because it takes years and years of research before studies are not only, completed, but written, published, and go through all of that. So I think there was so many people just sort of saying, oh, okay, you qualify. Sure. Here you go. Without knowing what you really need to do to help these clients in the end, and maybe adjust the dosage or change this or change that and how to get more nutrients into them. I got to tell you, because of my background, I have helped clients more than their physicians have with things like making sure they're getting enough nutrients.
Yep.
Because I can talk to them because of my background. I was like, okay, maybe you need to be thinking about vitamin mineral supplement that's more for like a bariatric person, because you're no longer going to be eating as much. You're going to be eating a lot less, and you're probably not going to be having enough of certain things, including iron. And, bringing things like that up, telling them, eat your protein first. I said, oh, I have a salad first. I said, and what do you have after your salad? Oh, I can't eat anything.
Exactly.
Bingo. And they, like, okay, you got to reverse this now. You got to really think about protein first.
Yep. You
got to get your nutrient dense food in first, and then kind of like, your toppings on a sundae, you can sprinkle other things on top of, the meal, but you got to get the nutrient dense things in first. And that's, I think, was missing from a lot of physicians, because that wasn't their specialty. Nutritionists knew, dietitians knew, but I think a lot of physicians were just unaware at that time. I think they're a lot more aware today than they were 3 years ago, for sure.
Yeah, although having talked to a number of friends who've been going on it recently, their doctors have not said a thing about nutrition to them. Zero, not a bubbles. And they've really had to, and the good news is there is some good information out there now in terms of meal plans and that kind of thing, and just how do you figure out how to get your nutrients in a smaller quantity than you might be used to. But you got to pay attention, right? Because you can't just go and say, oh, I'm going to have my 2 bites of pizza and my half a burger or whatever it is you used to eat, because that's not really going to get you what you need.
No, you're not going to get what you need nutritionally at all doing something like that. And I've had some clients say, oh, I had lunch and then I realized I didn't eat anything until the next day.
Right.
Say, okay, what did you have for lunch? A salad. Said, all right. So for the last nearly 24 hours, no wonder they're fatigued during the workouts. First of all, if I see them first thing in the morning, but I say, how's your energy? Oh, I'm dragging. Said, okay, we probably need to talk about some nutritional things here. And that's not my area of expertise, but I have a background in it. Something I found fascinating. I've talked to many physicians. Do you know the number of nutrition courses they take in college and med school? Most of them?
It's like 0.
For the ones I talked to, 1. In one of their undergrad.
A lot of times it's 0 at some medical schools. That's what I heard.
Yeah. So if it's not covered there, they may understand everything that's going on physiologically, but nutritionally, you really need to have that. I like to say you need to have that card in your pocket. Yeah. And if not as a physician, I was talking with a surgeon friend yesterday, and his practice actually has nutritionists as well as psychological people to talk to. So, and he specializes in weight loss, bariatric, all of that. So for him, it makes sense. Okay, here are these nutrition people. And he's the first to say, you know what? Talk to them. They know more about it than I do. I'm good at what I do. And when you hear that, it's like, oh, I appreciate that at least. It's like, good. Don't pretend you know everything, because none of us do.
I'm also thinking, a lot of the people that do this have had various kinds of disordered eating for years anyway. All my friends who are overweight, it's like they go on weird diets, they calorie count, they've tried all kinds of different things, many of them. And this is why they're not going to GLP-1s, because nothing has really worked in terms of just food control. So a lot of times they have, like, I would say a skewed view of what's healthy or not healthy.
Yeah.
Right. What's like nutrient, because oftentimes the nutrient dense foods are also calorie dense foods.
No joke.
Right. So it's kind of like, so they've sort of trained themselves like wanting a salad instead of a ham sandwich or whatever. They've trained themselves to want something that maybe is not what they need now with the current medications that they're on and the current nutritional status that they're in, and the fact that they're eating, half as much food as they used to. So I think those are all complex pieces of that puzzle.
Yeah, there's no question. This is a complex situation. And I think you need a team. You need a team who understands what your body's going through. So the physician understands physiologically what's happening and can monitor that, can monitor your blood work, can monitor all of that to make sure that you're not missing out on any specific nutrients. Because I do know that certain things, when people are on GLP-1s, like vitamin A, drops on a lot of people. Vitamin D drops on a lot of these people.
Yeah.
And when those drop, we can see issues. So there are certain things that kind of need buffering. Iron, because let's face it, I talk to a lot of people and they say, oh, I just don't like protein. I don't eat protein. I don't like it.
Protein feels too heavy. It's too hard to digest.
Yeah. And I'm thinking, but without it, where is your iron coming from? Where are you getting your minerals? Where are you getting that side of things? And so it's important that they understand that you need to take more than that you need to do that. And getting your blood work done on a regular basis is a highly, highly advantageous thing. I can't recommend it enough.
Yeah. And I would say for, those of us in our professions where we're, ancillary or auxiliary to the medical community, if you know a client is on these, just suggest that to them. Say, hey, why don't you talk to a nutritionist? Why don't you make sure you've got your nutrition covered for this? Because again, physicians often don't talk about that, or they may not be going. They may be going through some telehealth thing to get it too, right? So they may be getting really no information at all. And just to suggest that, I think is really important. The other thing too, and you mentioned it a little bit earlier, is because of the decrease in calories and sometimes the lack of nutrition that they're getting, that fatigue. I've had a number of instructors say they can tell a client is on GLP-1s even if they don't tell them. And sometimes clients don't tell you or they lie about it. That's happening too, because they suddenly can't do the reps they used to be able to do of something simple like footwork. But a lot of clients say, somebody comes in, a lot of instructors say a client comes in and suddenly they're just not as strong as they were, a month and a half ago, and there's nothing else going on. There's been no injury or anything else. And it's like, they'll say, are you on GLP-1s by any chance? And they'll say, oh yeah, I've been on it for 3 months or something like that. And those are just things to be aware of. And, some weight loss, a lot of times people don't want to tell you they're on GLP-1s. They want it to be whatever. There's all the weird stigmas about weight loss. But I think it's really important for you to know as a movement educator that they are or they aren't.
It's vitally important. A number of the ones that I have talked to, fortunately, they're physicians after about the first year, they've lost a lot of weight. Well, some of these doctors have invested in, whether they're accurate or not, I can't say, but we're talking about, body fat, machines. Okay. Right. Bioelectrical impedance, primarily the ones you stand on and you just hold. If you're not fasted, if you're not without water for 8 to 12 hours beforehand, it's really not the most accurate for numbers. As long as you're consistent and consistently doing around the same time of day and everything, maybe the numbers are fairly okay for you. And maybe you don't need to do it that scientifically. I come from a scientific background. So for me, I want to be as close to that as possible. But the doctors will invest in these things and then they'll say, oh, wow, oh, you've lost a lot of muscle. Oh, it's like, okay. And then they come into me and think, but I'm lifting weights. What? And they almost want to blame me. And I say, wait a minute. Okay. You've lost weight. Anytime you lose weight, you're going to lose both fat, water, and lean tissue. Everybody does. You talk about the biggest bodybuilders in the world and they're on performance enhancing this and that. And guess what? They still lose that lean muscle, when they strip down, when they try and lose weight. So it's not an unheard of thing that's going to happen to you.
No.
So that's something to think about.
I mean, I think it's something really to think about. And one of the things I've been talking to a lot of my instructors about is many of the clients in a Pilates studio, not all of them, but a lot of them, especially doing privates and things, are women in their 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, right? Yep. Sort of like older women. And many of them are either in perimenopause or postmenopause or menopause. And this is a time when sarcopenia is happening anyway, right? Once you lose estrogen, sarcopenia, which loss of muscle mass goes up. And then you've got that. And a lot of times, like there's a number of people in that state who are also then taking these GLP1s. And that the concern for me there is severalfold. One, you're already losing muscle mass because of your loss of estrogen. They're adding this other thing, and you're a potential risk for osteoporosis, and you're losing muscle mass for that as well. Like for me, it just says, if you're, a woman of a certain age, exercise in any case is essential, as we know, but it's certainly, if you're going to do GLP1s, you have got to maintain your exercise regime and probably increase it slightly.
Increase it is what I keep hearing.
Yeah, just to keep whatever muscle mass you've got going, and to keep it up while you're losing the weight, so that you don't lose so much of the muscle mass. You're always going to lose some, but just trying to minimize that as best you can, because that is a critical time. If a woman in her 50s or 60s suddenly decides to lose 50 pounds and loses a good chunk of her muscle mass at the same time, that may really lead to an increase in falls and an increase in osteoporosis and an increase in all kinds of other issues that are potentially life-threatening over time. So that's the particular population that I think about a lot with this, is just be really careful. And those of you who are Pilates teachers, make sure they're working out, encourage them to come a little more often. And really for you, work on increasing the reps or increasing the resistance or whatever you need to do to just keep that muscle mass building, or have them add a little weight training once a week, something like that.
One of the things that I was looking up this week in preparation for this, this is one thing that I follow a lot because I have a lot of clients on it.
Yeah.
So it's something that I'm constantly sort of looking up the research on and making sure that I'm up to date on everything that's coming out. So I'm always looking at pros versus cons. There's a lot of pros. And what we're seeing is a lot of things that are being touted in everything from New York Times, Wall Street Journal, LA Times, all of these major news sources, and they're on TV and things. A lot of the positive side effects, like the one that was just released a couple of days ago, saying that it showed lower cancer rates among GLP-1 takers, breast cancer surviving is up. There's a lot going on with cancer and GLP-1. So it does have a pro.
Yeah.
Sleep apnea, helping with that.
Yep.
There's a lot of things. Cardiovascular issues. There's a lot of pros with this. And I think there's a lot of people who are trying to jump on the bandwagon, especially the drug companies, that want to tout this information, because the more that they do that, the more they're going to sell. So they do have a stake at this.
Major stake.
Major stake. And I look at it and I think, okay, well, let's see this. If you're taking the drug, you're probably going to have a much better insulin to glucagon response in your body. You're going to have less inflammatory issues in your body. Those things right there can lead to a lot of these positive outcomes. So guess what? It's almost as though you could foresee some of this and say, yeah, it does make sense that these may be the reasons, because people are losing weight because their hormones are now balanced in a way that they weren't before when they're talking insulin. those rates are coming down. You're not seeing as much of the glucose intolerance as you were before because of this. And guess what? With all of that, inflammation decreases. Inflammation decreases, we start to live healthier lives. Our bodies don't have that same amount of fight or flight on a constant basis.
All kinds of chronic illnesses are based on chronic inflammation, right? A lot of kinds of cardiovascular disease, diabetes causes and is caused by it, and many other things. You just think about joint pain and arthritis and all the other kind of things that we deal with all the time as movement professionals. And there does seem to be some risk. And just to say there that when they do, and these are still somewhat preliminary studies, so I don't.
They are 100%.
There's a lot of money being poured into positive studies. So I also, I think those are just two caveats for this. But they're showing, a decreased risk of cardiovascular illness, for example, which goes with weight loss also, but it is above and beyond what they usually see just with weight loss.
Right.
So, there's a lot of things that they're seeing that are, yes, they're related to weight loss to some extent, but these are better results than they get with just weight loss. And I think a lot of that is the anti-inflammation thing. And one of the thing that I think is interesting is that loss of food brain, right? That loss of where's my next meal coming from and what am I thinking about? Also relates oftentimes to different addictions. And I'm starting to see this for, drug addiction and smoking and other kinds of things. So that's also interesting too, that it seems to regulate the brain in a way to not have that same kind of obsessive drive to get the dopamine response, basically, right? To get that little hit that comes from getting your pleasure sensors stimulated by whatever your particular drug or food of choice is. So that's also interesting.
There have been some other weight loss drugs in the past that focused primarily on, that part of your brain, the food addiction part of your brain. It wasn't just a hunger cessation. It was actually going in, and one of them, actually, they found, this drug we were focusing on for smoking cessation, but, we're seeing weight loss. And so it became a weight loss drug. And that happens with a lot of drugs that are out there. But this seems to go to that next level and affects it in a way that is superior to everything else in that sense. And I don't know how it's rewiring it, or if it's just taking the thing that I've mentioned this to some clients who are on it. I said, okay, you got to be honest with me now. And I'm not asking for any personal details, but have you found some of the passions that you used to have, some of the pleasures? Are you getting the same amount of pleasure out of things that you used to? And because I'm curious about that, because if it is rewiring your brain and you're not getting that major dopamine hit in a way that, or a serotonin hit or whatever it is that you were getting from food or alcohol or, whatever other, let's face it, if you have a food addiction, chances are you may have a highly addictive personality. And if that's the case, there may be other things that, give the person pleasure that they're addicted to, in which case, and a number of them said, I haven't thought about that, but I haven't been doing such and such. I haven't been doing such and such, I'm thinking, okay, it's just something to sort of note. And I was reading an article and the person actually was saying, they changed my dose and suddenly I started getting those pleasures back. They just reduced it a little bit. It wasn't as high of a dose. But if you don't know to ask and you don't realize that that's a side effect, you may not even know that can be changed. So that's something to keep in mind to talk to your clients about, is if you notice their personalities be flat and they're no longer doing things that are fun or finding joy in their children or finding joy in whatever it is, canasta, whatever, mahjong, whatever makes you happy. If you're no longer doing it and you're just, and you can see them sort of coasting through life, maybe that's something to make mention to them of, hey, if you're not seeing as much pleasure, maybe you've lost a lot of weight. Maybe you don't need as much of, the current dose that you're on. Maybe talk to your doctor. Obviously, we're not physicians, but maybe that's something that might be able to be adjusted.
I think that's really, again, I hadn't heard about that. That's, except for this one little anecdote that I heard about people who were on antidepressants and that it just kind
Mhm.
of dulled them out further. So that's really good to know, really good to be aware of. Because, with clients, for better and worse, we're often the person they're seeing or who's paying attention to them, I should say, in a
The
close
most.
way regularly. You know,
Mhm.
their spouse, maybe not, their kids, maybe not, their work colleagues, maybe not, but we're kind of staring at them and really paying attention for that hour or two a week that we're with them. And that's
Mhm.
oftentimes the time we'll notice things that other people won't necessarily notice because, our job is to notice things, to pay attention. So that's
Yep.
really interesting. Yeah, I'm going to
Yeah.
pass that on to a few of my instructors that I've been talking to about this lately.
Yeah, it's just something to keep in mind that we've been seeing, and again, that goes into the con list. There
Mhm.
are so many pros, and again, we're gonna hear mostly about the pros. You do sometimes hear about the cons, and I hate to say it, but it's usually when a celebrity goes on it and suddenly they have a bad side effect and they go out touting how it's the worst thing in the world, and they will say, "This was my reaction to it." I've been on many things in my life. Many, pharmaceuticals have been prescribed to me over my course of my life. Some worked, some didn't.
Yeah,
Some have side effects, some don't. I think we're
yeah,
all that in that way.
exactly.
And I hate to say it's unfair because some people really need this drug in order to, live. They're going to need to lose the weight because there are so many negative effects of holding on to several hundred pounds. I remember working at the National Center for Weight and Wellness. I had people in there 600 pounders, 650. For them, this is a miracle. This is something that can really be life
Life
changing,
saving, life
literally,
saving, and
and life
life saving,
saving.
genuinely.
And if it's not working, you kind of feel bad for them. And a lot of weight loss drugs, they were saying, it's about a 60 to 70%, success rate. That's still a high number of people that it doesn't work on. Now,
Yeah,
there's different types out there now. There's pills, there are injections, there's GLP1, GLP2. There's all these different, concoctions. So hopefully you can find one that does work if that's what you need. But at the
yeah,
same time, if something is hurting you or causing you to have some side effects, talk to your doctor, or if
exactly.
you see the client starting to change personality, maybe mention and just, you don't have to say you're not yourself. You don't have to come at him like that, but you can just say, how's things been, see if they can recognize that maybe they haven't had the same amount of pleasure in life. Maybe.
I also want to mention, because one of the things they say about this is that if people go off it, they often gain the weight back, gain a good bit of the
Mhm.
weight back, and their food brain comes back, and kind of everything just returns to the pre-state, right? The
Yep.
pre-GLP-1 state. And I certainly know, I mean, based on just cost, availability, people's reactions to things, we're going to start having clients, if we don't already, who have gone on them, lost a bunch of weight, and are now going off of them.
Yep.
And the other thing that I really want to think about is that transition time, because for a whole lot of clients, you're hoping that they take that time when they're on them to get healthier habits, both in terms of movement and in terms of nutrition and stress control or whatever other things they need to do. And that then, once they go off them, they have gained some skills that can then
Mhm.
take them forward into, a better way of eating. Now, saying that doesn't mean that that's true for everybody, because a lot of people were eating very well beforehand and they just got a genetics that's like, I eat, I gain
Yep.
weight, period. The story. That certainly happens. I've seen it a lot. But still, to just see about like, okay, well, maybe I can maintain some of these same habits when I'm gone, when this is over, when I'm done with this particular drug. The other thing too, and you're a good person to speak to about this, is that kind of rapid weight loss is also challenging on things like balance, things
Mhm.
like how do I move?
Yes.
Um, it just because it. I mean, I haven't talked to that many people about that particular problem, but I think about like my pregnant ladies, who gain
Mhm.
40, 50 pounds in 9 months, or even certainly 20 or 30 in 9 months, and it's like every day it feels like their balance is it's a whole new day today because the baby's shifted or they start to gain some weight or they got, whatever. Have you seen that too? There's just
Yeah.
some, yeah, balance challenges, coordination challenges that show
No
up.
question. I'm
Okay.
thinking of one right now. She lost a lot. I'd say
Uh-huh.
she's lost I want to say at least 60, probably closer to 75 pounds.
Okay.
And she's not young. Okay. She's in her 70s. The doctor put her on one of the first pill versions. It helped. It's not one of the ones that are touted about now. It's an older one, but it definitely worked. And it was a GLP-1 type. It worked. She lost a lot of weight really quickly. She's had a number of falls since. And a lot of it does come from the fact that you do change where your center of gravity is. We all sort of assume that our center of gravity, it's where it is. But if you're talking about someone who's distended, especially in the middle, either stomach, breast, back, whatever that is, especially in the middle, and suddenly that goes down a lot, especially the stomach, suddenly things are going to change. And what people also don't realize is that depending on how long you've been overweight, okay, I spent most of my life being very, very large, and my bones conform to it. We've talked about that before. Well, guess what? When I lost a lot of weight, my spine is basically, I sort of joke and say I'm a Spinosaurus because my spine, literally, I can't sit on anything with a hard back because my spine is literally at my skin level. My spine is processes, and it hurts to sit on things like that. Lying on my side, my greater trochanter, there's not much meat there anymore. That's, and so I lie on a mat that's on the ground, and the mat used to be comfortable. And now I'm thinking, geez, this hurts. No wonder my clients were asking for 2 mats and things. I'm like, oh man, yeah, they're very thin clients.
Yeah, that's interesting.
That you don't think about.
Yeah.
Well, also something that we don't think about a lot of times is fat can also be a source of stability within certain joints.
Yes, absolutely.
And now you no longer have that amount of adipose tissue sort of making up the space around that, holding it together like a tight ace bandage. Well, that can lead to some instability. And I'm going to say, look, losing 50 pounds, your knees are going to thank you for it. No question about it. But could they be a little unstable in certain regards? Possibly. Not saying yes, but possibly. I have another client that I'm thinking of that hers became much more unstable after losing about 30 pounds. She said they felt better for a while, and then suddenly it's like they just don't feel like they're under me all the time. So these are other things. Now, this is anecdotal. This is things that I've heard from clients. But from a physiologic standpoint, and also from my own experience, I can tell you that that does change how your body feels in space, the amount of stability that it has, and the amount of joint support that you're going to feel.
I think that's, again, just another piece for us to think about for working with these clients, especially if the weight loss is pretty rapid. Because sometimes it is pretty rapid. One other little thing I want to throw out here is, at this point, if I have any client with rapid weight loss, I'm going to assume they're on GLP-1s, but you have to ask them. Because there are cancers, there's other nasty things that show up with sudden weight loss. And you just want to make sure that it is a medication and it's not coming from some other source. So anyway, just wanted to throw that one.
No, that's huge. That's very important because that's critical to note. Because I have had clients who have lost a lot of weight all of a sudden, and this was before GLP-1s, and that's the first thing you started asking. Are you seeing your doctor? They say, but I'm looking so good. Yes, you are. However, I just want to make sure. And probably 50% of the time, they were glad they went in because things were caught. Sometimes it was just, I made changes in my lifestyle. I got divorced. I'm dating this new guy, all that kind of stuff. It's like, okay. Divorce diet works too. Your life is changing, stresses change, hormones change. I get it. But it's a good question to ask. Very good question to ask.
Yeah.
I wanted to bring up something that I was hoping was going to change for GLP-1s, and that's cost. Something that always floats in my mind is, are GLP-1s sort of a rich people drug?
Well, they are, unless your numbers are pretty darn bad. I mean, that's,
And you know what? I just read a report from that, I guess, talked to a number of, we're talking health insurance companies, and talked to a lot of them. And they are reluctant, if not, they're not going to cover GLP-1s, no matter what your numbers are. Unless, like you said, if they need it for diabetes and they are just absolutely, it's not covered. No matter how good a coverage you have, your pharmacy, prescription benefits aren't going to cover this. And it's because they say it's cost them too much and they're not willing to do it. And the ones that say we are, on those who absolutely need it for weight loss, absolutely, it's sort of okay, here's a cap, $3,000 a year.
Okay, which this cost
not
is
much.
Like, 3 months or something, 4 months, depending. I know the price is very wildly when I looked into it, but basically
very wildly.
Yeah,
it's a couple months worth. Yeah. And what you're still seeing is drugs coming in from Mexico.
Yeah.
You're seeing, China. You're seeing a lot of things coming in that we don't know what is actually in these drugs. We have no clue.
This is really something where I would be super cautious and make sure I get a name brand something at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, again, the market is so clearly giant that people see that market and go, oh, I'm going to just throw a bunch of stuff in a pill and start calling it whatever. Like you know the temptation's there. The temptation's always been there in any drug that has a big market, whether it's illegal or legal. And this is just one of those situations where just be careful.
I was watching a documentary and it was talking about drugs coming in from Mexican pharmacies.
Yeah.
And the cartels actually supply the drugs to these pharmacies oftentimes. So you're getting what you think is testosterone, or you think is growth hormone, or you think is tramadol or oxycodone, whatever you think it is. But do you know it is?
Yeah.
You have no idea. They can box it up and make it look the exact same. I've certainly have gotten things off of Amazon and the internet, and I'm looking at it going, it looks similar, but I can tell it's fake.
Yeah, exactly.
And if someone's desperate and they're getting it from some other source and they're trying it, we're seeing some, we can see some negative side effects, some major negative side effects, because you don't know what quality controls are going into that, if any quality controls at all. So you just have to be really wary of that. I personally am wary of all of these new companies that are coming out, like Roe and Hims and Hers and all of these companies that are getting, let's face it, Serena Williams, she has brought a lot of people into Hers. I believe Hers is the one that she
Gwyneth Paltrow, same thing. All
Gwyneth Paltrow
stuff.
Exactly.
And like all that stuff is unregulated. The whole supplement market, all of that is so highly unregulated.
Yeah.
Really.
And GLP-1s, they're regulated to some degree. I think there needs to be more regulation. I'm not someone who believes in a ton of regulation, but when it comes to our health, I think there needs to be some regulation, especially when it comes to pharmaceutical things. Yeah. Because the GLP-1s, the compounded ones that we saw such the rage for so many years because you couldn't get the real stuff. Now these are sort of borderline. Are they okay? Are they not? Could they be? How's the licensing involvement? And I think it's going to become more gray and more gray and more gray as time goes on. And anytime I hear someone saying, oh yeah, I called up I went on the internet and answered these questions, and suddenly I could order it. Really? You asked questions. You didn't have a blood test? No, you didn't do. Okay, it seems sketchy to me. Let's just say that it seems a little sketchy to me, and I think it's only going to get worse.
Whenever there's a gigantic apparent profit margin,
yeah, I
mean this opportunity is huge. Something like 10% of the population is currently on one of these now, or 8 or 10%, depending who you talk to. That's a lot of people, and that will only increase, I think, as accessibility increases, as the price goes down, as different forms of, all those things are just going to make it much more popular and much more, again, a bigger market. And whenever there's that big of a profit margin available, people are going to do nefarious things. So yeah, definitely be really cautious with that, because the whole supplement market, all of that stuff is it's a Wild West. It's not well regulated. Nobody's paying attention, and people are
Yep.
just out for the money. So just be cautious for sure.
Yeah. And in going into the whole cost thing, when I said, is it a rich people drug, is when people don't have the money, but they're desperate, they're going to make
Mhm.
those poor choices.
Right.
But
Yeah.
at the same time, let's say they do make some poor choices and they are on something. I still think we need to solve the problem of stigma, because they may not want to tell their doctor that they're taking it. They may not want to tell their family they're taking it,
Right.
because you don't want to be looked at as, oh, you're cheating,
Right.
or you're weak-willed. You couldn't do this on your own, because that is still the stigma among a lot of people when they hear that. And I think it's gotten a little better, but I also know when I say that, I'm coming from a certain ethnicity, a certain area, Washington, D.C., where a lot of my clients can afford to do this sort of thing. There's a lot of cultures within our country that may have a much different viewpoint when it comes to something like this, like GLP-1s, or taking anything, that they don't want to tell their family, they don't want to tell their friends, they don't want to tell anybody. And if you're getting sick on something and you're not willing to speak up, that can be really detrimental to your health.
Well, if you're talking about it just in terms of the economic barrier, uh, obesity definitely goes up with a low socioeconomic income. It just
No
does. There's a
question.
direct relationship between levels of obesity and income. Like that's just how that goes. The richer you are, often the skinnier you are, whatever all that means. And there's a lot of complexities with all of that. But so that also means that many of the people that probably need this the most don't have access to it, which is,
Yeah.
America. This is kind of typical in our medical system at the moment. So something to be aware of there. The thing too that I think about is how, again, getting back to kind of our role in all of this, is thinking about really encouraging clients to be honest with us, be honest with their
Hmm.
doctor, with their families. So I think that's something that we can certainly do. And I think even just, not that we are doctors, but we can often steer people in a better direction, to your point about avoiding things that they're getting on some mysterious way, some nefarious fashion. So I think sometimes our role here is just being kind of a sounding board, or
Hmm.
maybe a source of common sense for some clients who may be doing things that are not necessarily the best things for them. So anyway,
Also an empathetic ear,
yeah, yeah,
because I try as much as I can to have a no judgment zone, because they will tell me things. They tell me things they won't tell their spouse. They tell me things that they're hesitant to tell their doctor until I tell them, oh, no, 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 no. You got to say this. This is
yeah,
important.
yeah,
And I don't judge. To me, it's like, okay, I've sent some clients to rehab
yep,
because they've told me things, and I'm like, okay, we're gonna need to talk about this. And when
yeah,
you're ready, we're gonna deal with this. So if they feel safe around us, they're much more likely to confide in us.
yep,
And if you're seeing their bodies change, obviously they're going to feel good about themselves. And yes, I've lost some weight, and they're going to be very happy about it. But maybe not that session. You may not want to point the finger and say, are you taking GLP-1s? But maybe down the road, just say, any new medications you're on? I go through with all my clients. I literally made an appointment with my primary care physician. They sent me a thing saying, oh, at our next appointment, let's go over, all the medications. I'm like, man, that's a long list. I haven't taken any of those for 4 or 5 years. Okay, I'm glad you're looking, and I
right,
appreciate it. So I will tell my clients the same thing. I'll just say, you know what? I just want to update my files, but I need to
mhm,
know, because it can affect what we're doing. And
right,
sometimes that's when I've heard, oh yeah, a couple months ago, I started taking such and such.
mhm,
Okay, cool. And then I will usually ask, doctor, are you seeing a doctor? Are you seeing a nutritionist? Are you seeing whoever they need to be seeing? Awesome. Just write it down for us to note. No judgment. Just, okay, cool. A lot of times I'll actually say, oh, I've got a number of people doing that. And then they're
right,
like, it makes them feel like, oh, okay, it's all right.
yeah,
Cool.
yeah.
I just need to know.
One other thing, and we mentioned this a little bit with our educator versus influencer conversation, so it kind of comes back, is one of the things that is interesting at this particular time is that there was a movement before this, not too long ago, really, of just, greater acceptance for different body sizes, right?
Yeah.
That kind of like
Yeah.
thin is the only way to go was just kind of like blown up. And you see bigger size models, and you see people, just being a little bit less like you have to be a size 4 or you're a bad person. Because there's all this
Mhm.
stuff that comes with weight that is not health related, that's vanity related, that's culture related, that's all that stuff. And this is just an interesting thing to throw into that mix, because now instead of like it being accepted, now it's like, oh, well, why aren't you on the latest thing that will
Mhm.
help solve this problem for you? Again, putting it back into weight is a problem. And, yes, it certainly can be. And I'm not saying it's not, but it also makes that stigma. I just think it'll be interesting what it does to that whole kind of fat stigma, which this culture is so
It
steeped in.
there's been a lot written about that, and there's been a lot of negative comments to people who touted for many years about being beautiful in your own skin.
Yeah.
The person
And
I'm
they're
thinking
on
about is
GLP-1s.
Meghan Trainor. She
Mm-hmm.
all about that base, and she had a very curvy body, very attractive woman, incredible voice. And she went on GLP-1s. She says she's never felt better. She feels
Yeah.
she looks great. She's happy. But the amount of hate that she got,
Yeah.
from the netizens out there just was sort of outrageous to me, because I'm thinking, wait a minute, here's someone who's taking better care of themselves. And, maybe this is a reason that they are losing the weight. Fantastic. If this helps, good for them. Awesome. But for them to be shamed about it, that's really an issue.
It's
And we
it's
are seeing
complicated, man. I know all these things. It really gets a complicated social cultural moment.
well, I was just reading an article. I was talking about Serena Williams going on GLP-1s, saying, does Serena now admitting that she was on GLP-1s now change the view of the Black body in our culture? Because there was a different viewpoint by a lot of people that this is me. I love my body. I love who I am. But now having some role models, Shaquille O'Neal started taking GLP-1s. He did it for sleep apnea, he said, and it's helped him immensely. And so we're seeing that in the athletic community, at least the retired athletic community, they're starting to take it. So maybe other cultures are now going to start seeing, oh, this is okay. I should be able to do this. I can do this. So I do think that that's going to change. And in the next year, 2, 3, 4 years, I think we're going to see a
Yeah.
lot of changes with that.
Yeah, I think it'll be fascinating. I think, my hope, of course, is that people will just like eat better and not be stupid. Because I have a lot of people that I know that are, again, they just have half a slice of pizza and a cheeseburger for dinner, and
Hmm.
soda in between while they're on GLP-1s, and then it's not like they've really taken the opportunity to change their diet or their exercise or anything else, like their actual lifestyle things. And yes, this
Can
will
I?
make them potentially
Oh,
happier for a bit, but you got to be careful with that.
yeah. I would like to say my dream for all of
Mhm.
this
Yeah.
is for anybody who's considering going on GLP-1s. When you're talking to your physician, think of it as a team effort.
Mhm.
Think of it as if someone's going to go under chemotherapy, for instance, or is going to go under some other type of treatment. Okay, you're going to start at this. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. Then we're going to bring you off of this. And in the meantime, you're going to see these people in between. I think we need to have that more holistic approach to this, because you can say, great, you're going to start GLP-1s. Fantastic. Okay, we're going to start you on a microdose, the smallest dose we can, subclinical, in fact. And then you're going to see the nutritionist. And then we're going to see how that works. And as soon as things aren't working, we're going to adjust this, we're going to adjust that. The nutritionist you have to see every 2 weeks, every month, whatever it is, and make sure you're eating healthy. Fantastic. Now you've lost some weight. Are you going to the gym? What's your exercise regime? Do you need a trainer? Do you need this? Do you need that? And then what is the aftercare? What is the, okay, you've lost 55 pounds. I think it's time to reduce your dose. You don't need 20 milligrams. Maybe you need 5. And in the end, maybe we'll step it down until we find that point where you start to, oh, I'm getting hungrier now. Okay, maybe we went too low. We can bump that back up and make those adjustments. I think seeing it as a more holistic approach and more of a team approach, I think can be so much healthier and make people, in the end, healthier, happier, and it gives them sort of an understanding instead of, well, I'm going to be on this the rest of my life. Maybe not. Maybe, but maybe not.
I think that's a great vision, Brian. I think that's a great place to end. So, I mean, and I think we're just part of that team. And I think the more we can encourage people to take advantage or to create their own teams in this is just really, it's going to help them. It's going to help us. It's going to help them go through this journey with more success. So,
and for our movement professionals out there, don't minimize the amount of, I hate to use the term, I'm going to say influence, not power, the influence that we have with our clients.
Yeah.
If you mention to them, I really think it would be healthy for you to see a nutritionist, and then you hand them the card.
Yes.
And then make mention, 2-3 weeks later, have you talked to them, or a week later, whatever it is, just say, I think it would be very, very beneficial for you.
Yeah, just one meeting, just talk to them, get some ideas. It doesn't have to be
make sure you're on the right track.
Yeah.
We have a lot of influence, and I think in that sense, it's really important for us to utilize it in the best way we can. And if we need to talk to their physicians, we can talk to their physicians. But I think putting them toward that right track, I think, is part of our job, and I think we can do better.
Absolutely. All right. So
very good.
GLP-3, GLP-1 3, and the end of the year.
Exactly. I think we covered a lot. Hopefully we touched on some things. And if you missed one of our other ones, we covered a little bit of what we've covered in the past, but we also talked about a lot of the updates and things like that, because things are changing and they're changing rapidly. And 2 weeks after this post, something may come out in the news and make all of it irrelevant. We never know. This is science, and it often happens very slowly, but occasionally it happens very quickly. But please do us a favor, hit that like and subscribe button. I can't say it enough. It really helps all of us out. That way we can continue to do this. We don't have commercials. We're doing this for the love of it. We get together and talk shop and hopefully help you guys out every week. So if you would like and subscribe and comment and share and do all of those things, we'd really appreciate it. Check out the YouTube channel. It's under my name, Brian Ritchie, where you can see us live talking. And let me mention also our Gmail. Hit us up there, movingconvos@gmail.com. So until next week, for Nora St. John, I'm Brian Ritchie. We'll see you then.
Hi, guys.